Hey there, thanks for joining me on this episode of Tropical Weather Impact. It is Thursday, August the 21st. Still talking about a lot of things in the tropics here. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, okay. That's fine. We can do it now, that's fine. I'll be in the ballpark.
Do it live!
Do it live. Hey there, thanks for joining me on this episode of Tropical Weather Impact. The meteorologist Payton Malone here in New Orleans. We got a lot to talk about here in this episode, including Erin. It's producing giant waves along the East Coast here. I've got some live shots coming up for you in just a second. National Hurricane Center, we're now tracking 4 spots out of total. Erin and 3 other spots for potential development. And yes, that says cold fronts for the last week of August. Some of you are about to get a taste of fall, and it may get close to the Gulf Coast here. I'm getting excited about it, but I'll tell you what, I'm still cautiously optimistic. Let's start with the live view. This is a live camera here over the Outer Banks of North Carolina. I want to step off so you can just get a full picture. The waves are crashing, the winds are blowing. Looks like a classic tropical storm here, but the thing is, Erin is sitting over 200 miles away. At least the center of Erin is sitting over 200 miles away from where this camera is. And so it shows you just how turned up the Atlantic is. And the Atlantic is going to stay rocking and rolling here for the next few days. We have rip current risk all up and down the Atlantic basin. Look at the people standing out here. You can see a little bit of wind. Winds have been gusting over 40 miles an hour at times, but these waves just crashing in. This is fairly high up though, so no big problem. So here's your current waves as of Thursday morning. We do have waves crashing 11 to even 22 feet here off the Outer Banks. Closer to the center there, we've been reporting waves 40 to 50 feet. We have one little buoy near the center right now, clocking in 21-foot waves, but it is rough out there. And remember, this extends well away from the center. The rip current risk continues all along the East Coast, well up into even Long Island, up towards the Cape there in Massachusetts. The water's not going to be safe to get in it. Please do not get in it. Erin's a giant storm. This thing, cloud base from the top to the bottom, is over 800 miles wide. That is bigger than the state of Texas. And so if you put Erin over Texas, it would take up the entire state. It's just grown from a small, tiny storm that was a Category 5. The eye was like 5 miles wide to this giant monster. And luckily, no major direct landfall, but still just dealing with rough seas will be the thing people remember from Hurricane Erin, and the fact that it was a Category 5 that strengthened so fast. There's the track. It's going to track south of Canada here. There's Newfoundland there, and then out into the central northern part of the Atlantic by the beginning of next week. Look at this. What's left over from it, sitting off the coast of Ireland, the UK, and so this thing's going to get absorbed up into the upper atmosphere here by early next week. It'll be long gone. All right, those 4 other areas we're tracking out in the tropics. I'm not concerned with any of these for the Gulf right now. This latest one that is likely to become a depression or tropical storm fair now here by the next couple of days into the weekend. Bermuda is going to watch it. The islands are going to watch it, but all signs really point to this thing staying out to sea. Invest 99 is still looking fairly healthy out of all of our tropical disturbances, but it's got some dry air ahead of it. We'll talk about what we'll watch long term with it. And then that little feature there, I thought it was a typo at first or a little accidental. There's been a burst of showers and storms. It's got a low chance of trying to organize. It is so tiny, it's in the central Atlantic. You shouldn't worry about that unless you run a shipping company out there. All right, so here's the latest on this one. It's not an invest, but I think this is probably going to be invest 90 here in the coming day or so. This will be traveling northwest and then north. So Bermuda, you need to watch this closely here by the middle of next week, but that feature looks like it's probably out to sea. It's basically following in the weakness of what's Hurricane Erin. And Hurricane Erin was initially expected to be far and long gone by now, 3 or 4 days ago. And so with it being closer now we've got a nice escape route for Erin. If Erin wasn't, or for this one, if Erin wasn't there, I may be a little bit more concerned about this getting closer to some islands or the U.S., but it does not look like that's going to play out that way. And so for now, that feature is going to be slowly coming together over the next few days. That's the current feature, Invest 99, and another tropical wave rolling off the continent of Africa. Now, the Atlantic Basin is not going to be as supportive for a tropical system over the next week or so. So I really do think after this little feature, there's not going to be a whole lot going on out here in the Atlantic for the end of August. Now, this Invest 99, you can see it really starts to dissipate in the next 12 hours or so. I think dry air is working on it. Meanwhile, here's the new depression or tropical storm Phnom trying to form, and models don't agree on the exact path, but they both show a turn heading up towards Bermuda by the end of this weekend. This is this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday may be closer to Bermuda there as it lifts north. Notice I'm hardly tracking anything in the Gulf, the Caribbean. That is great news as we head into the last week of August. Here in New Orleans and surrounding areas, the last week of August, we really do hold our breaths. We've had so many impactful storms on that August 28th, August 29th timeframe, and I really think we're going to get through this year without any big problems. So Invest 99, here's something we will follow with it, and I really am not too terribly concerned with it. Let's put it that way. It's going to be traveling west here. Dry air working on it, and it's probably not really going to look like much of anything here in the next few days, but the remnants of this tropical wave are going to be traveling across the Atlantic. We want to make sure it doesn't ever come back to life as it approaches the Caribbean. Now, when would that happen? If there is a tropical wave still around and it doesn't just crash itself and bury itself into Central America, next week. The thing is, the Caribbean's probably going to be fairly hostile still. There's some dry air. We'll see how it plays out. But right now, I just don't see any big signs that Invest 99 is going to do anything too wild next week. But it is something to monitor. Meanwhile, what we're going to be doing next week here on the Northern Gulf and across the big part of the U.S., we're going to be tracking cold fronts. I could see a scenario where we're tracking about 3 separate cold fronts. And yes, some of them try to make it all the way down here to the Gulf. The first cold front, it's moving into the region today and tomorrow for your Friday. That's just producing a little extra rain and some drier air to the north. That massive blob of tropical moisture, that's Hurricane Erin for you. Just a tremendous amount of tropical moisture. Watch it. It heads out to sea. This old cold front parks itself, dies out. Now, the second cold front tries to advance down to the south by the beginning of next week. That one also doesn't do a whole lot, maybe some lower humidity. But notice this fine line by next Wednesday and Thursday. That could be an actual stronger cold front, and we'll see how it plays out. There is some guidance that thinks maybe that front gets all the way down here to the Gulf Coast. Other models say maybe it does not. It'll be a close call. Now remember, it's very difficult to get a nice cold front all the way down into New Orleans and the Northern Gulf this time of year unless you have a hurricane spinning over here that helps pull it down. And I don't want that, and we don't have one next week. And so right now, it's a bit of a marginal idea that the cold front actually pushes all the way into New Orleans. We will certainly be watching it though, because if it were to push down all the way here, we could really get some lovely weather around the 28th and the 29th. That's the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. That's the 4-year anniversary of Hurricane Ida. Isaac was back in 2012 around the same time. That date is just not good down here, and so I'd much rather be talking about some beautiful weather than a tropical feature, and so we will hope that trend continues. Now Monday here, the cool air is going to start to slide down across the eastern U.S. I don't think we see much relief along the Gulf Coast. Look at this. You want to feel fall? You don't have to go very far north. Monday morning, Chicago, Minneapolis, you've got some chilly mornings on the way early next week. D.C., Washington, up towards New York. You get in on some of that cool air, but look at next Thursday. If we can get that front all the way down to the Gulf Coast here, we do have that potential for some nicer weather creeping our way. Again, it's a little too soon to call it for sure, but I think for sure to our north it's cooling down. Chicago, Nashville, Atlanta, Charlotte could have mornings later next week in the upper 50s. For the last couple of days of August, it's amazing here what we can sometimes get as we get into these transition months this time of year. And so cautiously optimistic, but hey, that would not be a bad deal. Got a great question yesterday from a viewer. They said, you're talking about cold fronts. Cold fronts aren't going to do anything to our temperatures. What does it mean for hurricane season? And I said, that's a good point, because they do all play together, right? Cold fronts are often associated with blocking a system. Now, oftentimes I think this gets oversimplified when we're talking about how cold fronts help steer a hurricane. It's oftentimes, I think, miscommunicated, we'll put it that way. What produces a cold front? Well, a trough of low pressure has to exist for a cold front to form to get a front to move along with it. And so what happens here is, well, this week and next week, we've got these fronts coming down, but it's associated with this deep trough of low pressure. That is something that can keep something from our hurricane from coming to the United States here. And it helps us out at least with Erin in our current feature. So whenever you have a trough like this digging down, and you've got features far enough out in the Atlantic, not in the Caribbean, not in the Gulf, but out here in the Atlantic, that is blocking it. They get up closer and they say, oh, we got to go this way because that trough is digging down. Now, what you don't want to see is whenever you've got something far out in the Atlantic and this big ridge of high pressure right here sitting over the U.S. That's a blocking high, and tropical features get blocked underneath it. And so there's a couple different scenarios here you look at with steering patterns. So right now, the way everything's setting up, this is a good steering current for the Gulf Coast region. Now that's if everything's out in the Atlantic. This can cause problems though. A cold front does not always block systems from coming your way, and troughs don't always help you out. Sometimes they can be a factor in a hurricane coming your way, or even a hurricane strengthening sometimes. And so what type of scenario would cause us problems with this? Well, it's if we had a disturbance somewhere in the Caribbean or the Gulf, it would feel that weakness in the ridge, feel that trough, and get tugged to the north. And so we do not have that right now. We don't have any features in the Caribbean, but I just wanted to talk about what we look at as forecasters. Just because there's a trough, just because there's a cold front doesn't always mean you're in the clear. Sometimes a ridge of high pressure is the better scenario. Let's say we had this ridge of high pressure sitting right over South Louisiana and Mississippi. We would call that a blocking high, which means nothing would come up in that ridge of high pressure. It would still steer everything due west. And so I just wanted to talk about how oftentimes the steering currents can get oversimplified when you're talking about troughs and cold fronts. Every storm is different. It's a lot more nuanced than just looking at little terms or bigger, broader terms here and there. But it's always fascinating to see how these setups happen, and sometimes cold fronts are good, sometimes they are bad. Just depends on where your disturbance is sitting out in the Atlantic Basin. So that's where we stand for our Thursday, August the 21st. We're tracking Erin off the East Coast, moving out to sea, several other areas, but for now the Gulf is looking nice and quiet the rest of this week, and I even think the last week of August, more attention is going to be on cold fronts rather than what's happening out in the tropics. Thanks for joining me today on Tropical Weather Impact. We will have more updates for you the rest of this week and into next week. Have a great day.